we're going to invite Jordan and Heidi to the stage. Jordan Evans is the co-founder of Art Against Ageism, which is an alliance dedicated to identifying, amplifying, and creating art that confronts stereotypes and misperceptions about age and promote age positivity. So Jordan's going to be in conversation with the nationally recognized photographer and art activist Heidi Wagner of the Passions Movement, which embodies the work of the Passions Project. And this project combines art with individual stories to create a new narrative around living with passion and purpose, inclusive of all races, creeds, genders, and gender identity, moving a dynamic platform or providing a dynamic platform to ignite social change. So Jordan and Heidi, I welcome you. And to lay a little groundwork for this conversation about creativity towards social change, I just want to refer to a book that was published by Dr. Rebecca Levy in 2022, Breaking the Age Code. And she took on questions like, why is Alzheimer's 5 times more common in the US than in India? Why are most older adults able to recover from really serious injuries? And her years of research on age beliefs found that older adults who had positive age beliefs are 44% more likely to completely recover from a severe disability. Those with negative age beliefs saw that their hippocampi, the part of the brain related to memory, shrank 3 times faster than those with positive age beliefs. So we now know that the way we think about aging, age beliefs, as she calls it, have a 15 times greater impact on our minds than whether or not, like, say, we have the gene variant for Alzheimer's, right? Or other gene parts of our body. So the work of Heidi and Jordan is so critical because it helps us live longer, better lives together. So welcome you to take it away, Jordan and Heidi.
Well, we are very, so I'll just say, like, I have this like orange glow right now, or this like pink hue. And so this is very strange, but I kind of love it because we're talking about age positivity. And so I'll just start off with, while we were preparing for this, I will have to be honest with everyone. I had a sort of identity crisis as a person who wants to combat ageism and as an artist, because I consider myself to be more of an activist than an artist. And in that space, you know, being in the combating ageism space, I'm always wanting to be focused more on the art and not knowing my identity as an activist. And so, Heidi, I kind of want to talk about this like as like these two dual roles, the activist and the artist, and why is artistic, you know, we always talk about artistic activism and like why this is important work, but how you can't do the work without both the activism and the art. So yeah, I kind of like start off with that.
Well, first of all, can you hear me? This is the first time I'm using my headphones.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, you know, it's funny that you're mentioning that we're coming at this from different sides, where it's like, I always just saw the art piece, but never really the active, you know, wasn't really thinking myself as an activist. I mean, the activism came from doing the work and doing the art, doing the photography, and seeing the message and the importance of the work and what the work is trying to tell and show and teach the world about what it is to live with passion and purpose. And when you live with passion and purpose, we stop talking about it being age appropriate to be doing whatever it is. It's like, we're all just finding what it is that we're passionate about, and it's personalized to us. So, you know, it wasn't, you know, I've never been thought of myself much as an activist person, and I just let the images more speak for themselves.
Well, so I always felt embarrassed being an activist and talking about this activism, because when you think about activism, you think about people signing lists and people going out and picketing and people writing pamphlets that are just like, have so much information in them that you walk away and you're like, I felt that was conflict. Why did I not feel like someone was having me sign up for something, but like they were yelling at me? And so We actually, in doing this work, we've done a lot in learning more about artistic activism. Meg and I, my co-founder Meg and I, we started reading this book from the Steves and the Center for Artistic Activism. And one of the things that one of the Steves says is, what made you step off the curb? And it's art that makes people step off the curb. Like, I've never, meeting 26 and caring about ageism, what made me realize that I experienced ageism, that older adults experience it, that everyone experiences ageism, is art that moved me to hear these stories and see this perspective. I then read statistics and learned all these things, but it was not, this thing that makes you stand off the curb, watching the marching, what makes you join the march? And it's not stats. I had never asked you this question. What made you step off the curb?
I was working in a retirement community, and I was noticing the cool things that I was always very inspired by the people I was working with, always doing cool stuff, very engaged in their lives. And at the same time, when you talk to people about working with older adults, there is a direct stigma that, and people show their ageism very quickly about, and their own fears about aging very quickly, and in a very negative way. I mean, just thinking how, our fears of aging come out when we hear about people that are working, and it blows your mind kind of what they say. So for me, I was learning a lot about wellness and whole person wellness. And I wanted to create, as like I was starting to get back into photography as well. And the best way for me to be able to show the world around me and to tell new stories is through imagery and through photography. So just thinking about what makes people excited about living? And it's the small things about, what you're passionate about. And that's the question that drives my work, is like asking people what's their passion. So for me, I wanted to ask you, Jordan, what is your passion?
So my passion, and to give everyone watching the background, my passion is my art, and it took me a long time to realize that my passion is my art, because I always envision art to be like a visual thing that is. Oh, there we go. All right. I like to do this, but is this my art? So I love dancing and singing. I'm a social ballroom dancer. I swing dance, and I also sing jazz and blues. And that fills my soul. It fills my heart. I also have horses, and I love riding horses. And so I can list on and on. I love fishing too. And there's art in all of those things. So you can use that art to combat ageism, or you can use that art to combat whatever activism you're looking to do or promote age positivity. And you do that in the pictures that we see in your work. Like, just having someone, one of the pictures that stands out is there's this older gentleman who's singing.
Yeah.
And he just has this fierce look on his face, and he is just so into what he's doing. And it is every time I see it, I'm just like, I love this picture. If I could get this picture and put it in my house, I would.
I know exactly who you're talking about. And that was Mr. Sonny Harris. And I photographed him in Texas, and he had spent his whole life singing in a doo-wop group called the Rivingtons. And he also lived his entire life in California, in the LA area, singing, performing, pretty much has met every famous person you could ever think of from that era. And he ended up, moving closer to family later in his life, and nobody really knew about his past. So here, nobody knew he was a singer. Nobody knew that he used to, live this life of entertaining. And when we did his photos, and I saw him later after we did an art opening and the photos were on display, I asked, I said, Mr. Harris, how do you like your picture? And he said, oh, you know what, Heidi, thanks for making me famous again. And I think that's the biggest part about the work. And when you see people doing their passions, it's giving voice to people that are often unseen and unheard. And you want everybody to feel famous, like Mr. Harris felt famous again in that moment. And I mean, we spend a lot of time not allowing people to discover and rediscovering themselves and discovering who they are and honoring that part of themselves. And I love that piece of seeing people do their, being seen for their passions.
I feel like that is the key to combating any ism, is no longer seeing that person as that characteristic, like no longer seeing a person as an old person, but seeing that person as the singer who did this thing, or seeing me as this outdoors person who loves to sing and dance. And like that tells my story, so that no one looks at me and sees a Black man who's 26, who lives in this area, who does this thing, but like tells the story of me. And that is why art has to be a part of activism, because you can't see someone until you, this is a weird thing to say, but you can't see someone until you feel them. Like, until you
it's about changing hearts and
them.
minds, right? So,
Yes.
Art's about changing hearts and minds, and it's not meant to just, I mean, where words can connect with people in different ways, and, different types of activism, like you were talking earlier, of marching and protesting and coming together in crowds, but imagery and storytelling can really reach that piece with that hearts and mind, and you start to move past the ways that you see yourself as being different than this person you're othering, but you start finding ways to connect. So there's so many different projects that you've seen through art activism that just reach inside your heart and just make you really want to know someone in a different way. And the same way with the Passions Project, it's like we're using passion as that bridge to create conversation and to create that connection, because we like to, the way that you stay separate from people is by being disconnected. But when you can find a way to connect, that's that piece that then brings us together and then lends itself to being able to have a conversation when you didn't know how to have a conversation before.
How many times have you had said someone walk up to a picture and say, I do that too?
It's the best when you see people relating to the work and the people in the work. I've recently was able to expand the Passions Project not only to tell stories for older adults, but I did a project where we featured LGBTQ plus people. So, the LGBTQ plus community is a community that, is often othered and seen living in the margin. And, here we have people that can go up to a photo and be like, I love seeing Jean writing. I'm a writer, and I just love that messy, creative part that I see in her photograph. I can completely relate to that. And, Jean's 91 years old. Maybe if they just saw Jean on the street, they're like, dismissed her and not thought like there's anything that we have in common. And here in this photograph, you find that common thread. Or, even just thinking about, there's a photographer in the project. And of course, like I sat down with him and I was like, we talked for hours because, we like talking about just the places we love to take photographs and catching people when they don't know that you're, that you're actually photographing them. So, there's so many ways. And yes, when people relate to the people in the project, that's the key. That's the goal. That's the thing you're looking for. That's the part that just makes me so excited. Because again, I'm all about connection. I love connection. So doing a project that, brings people together and connects people is just, that's what makes me so excited.
That's what makes us excited too. I mean, just so we get this opportunity to connect because we are a alliance. We get this opportunity to bring in all of these artists and activists and just create this kind of conversation around what works we can do and what projects are people working on, and almost creating this community of artists and activists that combat ageism. And so that's what we strive to do. And so one of the things that we are looking at doing is creating a mural for all of you watching with some of the amazing works that Heidi has done. Because you walk into a building and you see that. But I would love, and this is our dream and vision, is to walk past the building and see that and see, oh my gosh, there are people that live there. Like, there are people that live there that do the thing I do. Heidi, do you have any pictures to show? I would love it if we could see some.
Yeah, Katie has something she can queue up for us. I'm sure she's like, she's awesome. There's Katie.
Yay, Katie.
Tell us what we're going to see here, Heidi.
Yeah, so this first, a lot of these are from the project they recently did. So this is Carl. We have Tony, who's playing guitar. We have a person doing yoga. With Monica. This is Dale, the photographer I was just talking about. This is Jean, the writer, who I was just mentioning as well. This is Alejandro. He was person that worked in the back part of Churchill Downs. This is someone from Bethany here. This is Mr. Dang, and this is Alice from Bethany as well. You know, we're seeing people cooking and people singing, playing the harmonica, playing musical instruments. Your passion doesn't, and here's Mr. Harris that we were talking about earlier as well. And this is Bob, who is just another amazing musician as well. And you know, it's a lot about, like, your passion doesn't have to be something that's that's outrageously extraordinary, like you are running marathons at 90, or that you are, jumping out of airplanes. A lot of times it's that thing that you love to do, whether it's writing. I love talking to readers, people that love reading. I mean, it's just that thing that brings you joy, that thing that you look forward to doing every day, that thing that makes you tick and gets you excited. I think sometimes people hear the word passion and they start thinking like, well, it's got to be this big thing. Well, no, it's that thing inside of you that you want to live your life doing and share with other people as well. That's a big part. I love it when people share their passions with others. It makes it even more special, I think.
It definitely does. I love the stories behind the passion. I mean, seeing the passion is really cool, being able to connect with it, but seeing the stories and hearing the stories behind people's ages. So we did a aging is living tree. So we did a tree that is based on Yoko Ono's Peace Tree. And so one of the questions that we asked is, what does being blank years old mean to you? And I would love if, for everyone that's watching, if you could drop in the chat, what does blank, and I'll share my screen and show what I'm talking about. There we go. What does being blank years old mean to you? So this was just some of the answers. It means I'm still here after cancer. It means I understand and have empathy and gratitude to live with hope and service. Being 65 means I've managed to stay healthy longer than I expected. Being 40.
It's interesting. I think sometimes we, culturally we get caught in what does certain ages supposed to look like. even like my birthday's coming up and I'll say, oh, I'm going to be 53 years old. I'm like, oh my gosh, you look so great. You don't look 53. I kind of go, well, this is what I look like. I mean, this is what 53 looks like right here. So what does that mean exactly? And I know we talk about this a lot in aging spaces and creative aging spaces about just continuing to, I mean, the way I see my life and the way I've always kind of looked at it is certainly when I've approached certain milestone birthdays, like when I approached 50, when I remember when I was 45, I was like, I wasn't ready to be 50 then, but I wasn't 50, so I didn't have to be. But by the time I got to my 50th year and I'm, knew at my next birthday I was going to turn 50, I was ready. Like, I just was like, oh, it's like I just always have been able to understand for myself, like, this is where I am and this is who I am. And, and if something is happening for me, it's happening in this time and space, and it can happen. It could have happened when I was 30, and it could still happen when I'm 60, but it and it's not age specific. It's like, it's about being now. And there's a lot of kind of that reference of what, the previous conversation they were talking about, of just like, being present and just celebrating where you are now, and just understanding where you are more than just trying to be something, trying to control and be something other than what is that the part of you that you are now. I mean, it's also obviously so much easier to say than it is to do. However, the less we're caught in those spaces of, longing or wishing or, hoping for something else and work instead of just being in that now, then I think that I've found it to be a lot easier to be happy or just to be able to celebrate my life where I am. Happiness is this thing, but it's more about just like, I'm celebrating my person and where I am. I mean, Jordan, you're younger and you're working with people that are talking about older adults. Do you feel ageism, coming at you in a different way than, say, how it comes and presents to people that are older adults?
I'm 26 and proud, and it took me being till 25 to be proud about my age, because I would be in circles where people would assume my abilities, my knowledge, and not or give me opportunities because I either could or could not do it, and never given the chance. But external is one thing, but internal has been another thing. Even just recently going through like having this outward identity crisis and feeling comfortable to say, I don't really know what I want out of my life right now, and being comfortable to say that throughout your entire life. Like, I don't know. I don't know. And I don't need to know. I'm here right now being happy at what I'm doing. And at some point I will know, but then there will be other things I don't know. And then to bring it back to Becky Levy's, age positive beliefs, I think ageism is the one ism that prevents us from living, and all of us, everyone, prevents everyone from living, because you have these internal expectations. I mean, external expectations are there, but they affect your internal expectations, or you just have your own. You're judging yourself among everyone else. Well, they're 26 and they're doing that, or they're 50 and they have this figured out. Like, I don't have that figured. I don't know. I'm reinventing myself, or I'm just at the start of inventing myself. And being happy and not knowing is one of the biggest things that frees you with age positivity.
One thing that was mentioned earlier in a previous conversation was talking about, well, maybe aging is when you start not living your life. And we're not necessarily talking about end of life, but just talking about, when you stop pursuing the things that bring you joy, that bring you, that feed your passions. I think that's when I've always said that too. That really resonates with me. It's like, it's not about, it's like you're only old when you stop living, and you can stop living when you're 30. You can stop living when you're, 50. It's like at any point you can sort of disengage from those things that bring you that zest for life, and that idea of pursuing your passions and living with passion and purpose.
Yeah. Katie, thank you so much for having us on. This has been amazing.
Oh, thank you both so much. I really appreciate this idea of, I'm hearing these themes like being present, looking within to create more visibility and humanity. And, Heidi, it's reminding me when we were prepping for this, you said, when we were talking about rediscovery, like what are the elements of this creative work you're doing that teach us about rediscovering ourselves and each other? And you said, this ideal dream that you're working towards of like, when we see images of older adults, we won't think of like cute, adorable words that, we often have heard, right? But that these images show personal strength and power that comes with all of us, right, in the aging process. And so rediscovery maybe needs to happen is that older adults are all of those things. We're all of those things, and we need to let them be that. I wrote this quote down when you said it because I loved it so much. Let's let them be that. Like, so thank you both for pulling us into the present moment, thinking about visibility.
Thank you.